Welcome back. This is episode 10. And today, what we're going to cover is we're going to actually cover what I believe to be one of the biggest parts of this, and that is the unit frames. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually break this down into multiple different episodes because of the size of this. So if we open up our configuration, as you can see, there are a lot of different RAID frame or unit frames that we could set up. Some we're going to use, some we're not going to use. And some for example, if you are a pet class, hunter, warlock, mage, you may want to use your pet frames. As a paladin, I don't have pets, so I won't be using them. But I'll go quickly over how to set those up. So in this part one, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the unit frames themselves as general setup, which is what I'm on right now. And then we're going to look at probably the player text, target of target, and then focus frame. I don't use target of target. That's a little bit too deep for me on what I do. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the font size or the font setup. And just like everything else, we're going to go to outline. We're going to leave font size to 10. No, let's not leave font size 10. Let's change it to what we set everything else at is 16 and see what it looks like. That's not too bad. We're going to adjust this around a little bit so that you're going to see what I'm talking about. But as you can see, the only thing on there is his health and his mana. So he's got 555 health and 36 mana. And up top is the holy power so that's basically a class resource. It could be embers, it could be soul shards, it could be arcane power. So by setting this up this way that I'm going to show you, you'll actually be able to transfer a lot of this over to other classes. So we've set this up for Font Outline Expressway 16. You could say that you want class health, which, like I said, will show for the paladin would be pink. I don't like that. So I'm going to go with custom health, and I'll show you how to change that later. You could set your backdrop to health, so when it starts going down, you'll see pink. And you could also make the texture transparent. So these are your colors that I was just talking about. And I'm going to set the health. So when I'm at full health, I'm going to set it. Let's try right about here. So there we go. That's the health. Now that will transfer over to all of your unit frames. So if I was to target myself, you're going to see that my target and my target's target has green, as in good health. All right. Now, right in here is your class powers. You can change those if you want, but these are set for your standard Blizzard colors. These are reactions. And that is, so if it's a friendly target, it'll be green. If it's neutral, blue or tan. And then reactive for bad, in other words, it'll attack you, is red. All right, here's your class cast bar. So for example, one of my warlocks is a demonology with green fire. So, or excuse me, this is cast bar. Okay, so these are set the same. And again, you can set these up as well. These are your aura bars, so this will give you different colors based on the type of buff or debuff. Here's your healing prediction. Now, this is what I was talking about with your class resource. And for him, its holy power is yellow. Okay, so if I wanted to make it a little bit darker, I could bring it almost all the way down, or maybe make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to leave it right where it is, but like I was saying, for my destruction warlock, normally that would be red. but he's a green fire warlock. So what I did is I actually changed that to a green color, and it's right here where you do it. And those are all the different color settings that you have. You can do a smooth bar, or you can take it off, and this is where you set your different um, textures for your bar. Everything else I have is set for bantho bar, so that's what I'm going to leave this one as. So target on mouse down. This setting, as you can see, it gives you the warning. So if you're using click or something like that, you can gives you a warning about this, and it's up to you. I usually leave this one alone. And this is your out of range alpha. So if your target is out of range of you, there's one right here. I missed it. So as you can see, it faded because it was out of range when I target myself. It goes back to the normal bright color. And that's what that's talking about. You're out of range alpha. Your debuffs will fill. Now, your basic modifier is set for your shift key. So if you you need to hold down the modifier in order to blacklist a certain spell. Okay. All right. So now let's go into this. This is your player frames. This is this one right here. And as you can see, there are many different things that we can modify in here. One thing that you can do is you can copy it from. So you can copy it from any one of these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my target frame. And then I want that to match my focus frame. This is just a macro that I made to help set focus or remove focus. As you can see right now, those are two different sizes. But when I get done with target of target, all I'm going to do is go over and go to my focus frame, and then I'm going to hit copy from target of target, and it'll be exactly the same. And then I can make any other modifications after that to just that one if I want. And there are reasons why I do that. So first thing you got to do is you have to enable whatever bar it is that you want to use. Once you've enabled it, then all of these modifications will take place. So you can have a combat frame. I usually leave my healing predictions on. Now, this is your height and width. And we'll probably leave that the same. I may end up changing the height. We'll see. But that's going to depend on some other changes that I'm going to make with the unit frame. Text toggle on NPC, power text will be hidden on the NPC target. Okay. So you can have your rested icon. So if I was in some place where I'd get rested, there'd be an icon right here with basically a couple of Z's as if he was resting. And that's there. Smart aura position. I have that disabled because I'm going to set that somewhere else. And then you have your combat icon and then glow on threat. So when you have threat, it'll put a red glow around your unit frame, and you'll know that you have threat. I set this for defaults, which I set the color already. Frame orientation is left. Okay. Now, here you can actually create some custom text, and that custom text will actually show down here. So if I want, I don't know, oh, I know, I'll use one for my, that I use on my shaman, which is mana frame. Let's see. So I just made that. Now, that nothing will show up yet because I haven't set anything for this. So what you see right here is how much mana I have. Now, what I could do is, these are all of the different items that you could put in there. So I want to show how much mana I have, and I want percent. So what I'm going to do is I'm just looking at this to find the right one. So I'm going to open bracket, power, color, and what that does, if I spelled it right, P-O-W-E-R, power color, sets the color of the text that I'm about to set, which is going to be the same color that I have right here. And then after I set the power color, I want to make this power, but I want it percent. So I'm going to open bracket again. I'm going to say power and then colon percent. Now what that just did is, once I hit enter, obviously I made an error in the way that I typed it. I'm just trying to figure out what I typed wrong. And the easiest way to do this actually is go to your power, and you can see this is what your current is. And when you go back down to the drop down, you go to my mana, and I hit Control V, enter. Okay, it's set for current right now. So let's change to percent. And there we go. It's at 100%. Now, what that's going to do is I'm going to tell it to attach it to the power frame. There's a reason for that, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to pick this up, move it over, but I don't want it centered. What I want to do is I want to put it on the left side, which is here. And then when I move my mana current, it'll be on the other side. So you'll have percent on one side and the amount on another. But we'll get into that when we get to the that part of it. So let's go back to, now that we have that set, let's go back to the health. So this gives you how much health you have, and then when you take damage, it's current percent. We're going to keep it attached to the health bar, but the position is going to be bottom left. I think it's bottom left. Do we have bottom left or bottom right? Let's go top right, actually. Okay, so that just put that up there. All right, we're going to leave it bottom right because we're going to actually put our name here. Nope. I think the rest of them I have top left, because the name is going to be right up underneath it, and this will keep this area clear. You'll be able to watch your health go down. But this is your offset, okay? As you can see, it's set for 2 and 0. So if I was to set this for 4, or excuse me, -4, that'll move in the opposite direction. And then the text offset is 2, so it's 2 pixels off the edge. 4 pixels off the top. All right. And then this is where you can actually hit this and change a color, and it'll take you right back to the window that we had previously set. So let's look at the power now. There's a couple of things that you can work on this. You have to, of course, enable it. Filter style is set. Our height is set for 10, which we're going to change. You can also change your color on this. And then the text position is, first let's attach it to the power. As you can see, it's right there. And it's on the right position. I want to go, yeah, let's go right. Let's keep it right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to detach this from the frame, and then we'll work on our size of it. So now that we've detached it, we want to make the determination on where we're going to put it. Okay. Just so it's easy to grab, let's change the height. I want to say the height should be somewhere around, I think it's 24, maybe 22. Let's try 20. All right, so let's set this at 20. And now we have to determine how wide we want it. That is from this position to this position. But in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to toggle our unit frame and kind of set the target frame up at about the right position. So what I'm going to try and do is line it up off of the red. And as you can see, it's 2 pixels off that way, and it's or 2 squares off that way, and then another 2 squares, and it's lined up with that top frame. That's a little bit too close, I think. So let's go 4 for each. Yeah, I'm thinking about 4 for each is about right. So let's lock that down, and then we can actually take a look at the power bar. So if we go back in here, we're going to actually move this because it's going to end up being up top anyways. And we're going to set the power bar now. I like to set the power bar right about in the middle. So that would be in this general area. Okay, so as you can see, they've overlapped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the detached width and then go back and kind of nudge it a little bit just to adjust it how I want it. And as you can see, it's a pixel or 2 off of here. So let's change detached width to 42, or yeah, 242. And then nudge this over one more time. Still a little bit too small, so 244. And there you go. All right, so that's that. Now, the cast bar, I usually actually like to have it down the bottom, not up top, because I want to put the holy power up there. But once we finish adjusting the power bar, we can set everything else. Okay, so you can set custom levels on this if you want. I usually don't, but this is the main settings for power. All right, so let's go to the name. And what I want to do is I want to set the name on the bottom left of the health bar. And this is where we set the format. So I'm going to go open bracket, name color. close bracket, and then open bracket name. And as you can see, it shows up. However, maybe that's a little bit too long. The one thing you can do is you can actually change the number of pixels that are displayed. And you can actually go as short as 5. So if I was to type, actually I think it's colon very short. All right, let's see if we can figure out the right formatting for this. So you got name short is 10 pixels, and very short brings it down to 5, as you can see. All right. So this guy's name, as you can see, but it doesn't change it on the tooltip. Now, you can change the color if you want, just by changing it in here. But usually I leave it the color of the character type. Okay, so now I'm going to enable the portrait, which, as you can see, it says the portrait here, and you can set the different widths of it, model rotation, camera distance. You can set your styles, whether it's a 2D or 3D. But one thing I like to do is I like to use overlay on health. So there you go. As you can see on the backs, you can see inside the frame is the 3D image of the character. Oh, one thing that I failed to do on the name is actually, I think it was 2 here. Yeah. And I want to set this the same as the health, the distance off. Now this will spread out once I move the holy power, because this actually is the full size of the frame. All right, so we have the portrait set up. Okay. Now PvP. Now here's a format already. They've already left that in there. And what I like to do is I actually like to put that center of the frame. So when I mark PvP, it'll go here and it'll put a timer on there. When you mouse over it, you'll see it. If you to take off this mouse over, then it would show up constantly right here. Okay. Now your buffs and debuffs. I don't like using them on my unit frame. I keep them off of the unit frame, and I put it up here. And I leave them up there, and I have some other things that I use as well. But you can set the number per row, the number of rows, and then you can set the XY offset as well as oversize override or font size. And then you can also set your different values in there for blacklist and so on. There's your buffs and there's your debuffs. I don't enable either one of those, as you can see. That's not enabled. And that's not enabled because I have them up here already. So there's not a need to see them anyways. The other reason for that is when I use auras. All right, so here's the class bar. You can match the width of your frame. Let's see if we have one showing. So there's the class bar. That's your cast bar. Okay, so this we're actually going to move. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to make it the exact same size as my mana bar. So in order to do that, I go to power and I look at the detached width is 244 and the height is 20. So the cast bar I will set for 244 and 20. Now let's set this in place so we'll make sure we're good on this. Because we may have to adjust the height just a little bit. As you can see, this hangs down a little bit. So I'm thinking what we're going to want to do is actually pull this up a touch. And that will be good right there. And then we bring this down just again. Okay, so as you can see, it shows up. This area right here is the icon of the spell that's being cast.
I need a target.
So if I actually had a target, I'd be able to actually hit this and you'd see it going across. And it'll have, you can put the spark and then the latency. I usually leave the latency on. And this will put a tick mark. If you're channeling, it'll put tick marks on here to show you how far it's ticking. And then you can also tell it to display the target that you're casting on. I usually leave this off. Icon inside cast bar, which put it right here, and we enable that. And that's all I set for the cast bar, okay? So now I'm going to hide the cast bar, and then we're going to go to class bar. You can enable this, and you can detach it from the frame, change your height and width. You can also set it to auto hide. Usually I don't use this, but it's something that's there for you if you want to use it. A good way to use this for shamans, for example, would be for totems. You can actually see your totems on there. Okay, so let's go to auras. Auras are basically timers left on buffs and debuffs that will show up. Really, it'll show up right up here above your unit frame. Now, anchor point is above, okay, and attached to frame. So what that did is that just attached it to here. And if I had any buffs or debuffs going, it would show up. And then you can show buffs and debuffs of friendly or whatever. And there's your threshold as well. So if you wanted a longer threshold that you want to see, then you can change that. Maximum number of bars is another thing you can change. I usually have 6. Once you go above 6, it starts blocking everything else that I use. So I usually keep it right around 6. All right. Stagger bar, I don't use as a paladin. Information bar, I don't use at all. I don't like the way this is set up on ElvUI. To be honest, I just don't like it. All right, so raid icons. So if I was to put a raid icon above my player, you'll see that. Now, that's good, as you can see with my target, and my focus frame. I can see if I know that my tank has a triangle over his head, and I see here that the boss is targeting this tank, then I know that it's that tank real quick just by looking at that icon. So that's why I use those, and I normally leave it set right up above the unit frame as it's set right now. For me, that is a good positioning, but you can change it as need be. And we've already discussed my mana that I created. Now, the class bar, as you can see, we just detached it. So we're going to toggle it, and we're going to put it up here. This is your holy power for your paladin. Okay. So everything else right there was set for 20. Obviously, that's a little bit too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and pull this down just a little bit, see if we can figure out what's a good number for this. I'm thinking 18. I could be wrong. Let's try 15. Yeah, 15 looks pretty good. Now, I know this is 244 from the other one. I think it was 244. But I still need to toggle it and shift over. Just give it a little nudge. Try and get it all lined up with the rest of them. And there we go. All right. So that is how I normally set my player frame. Default is set for 270 by 54, which is this size right here that it is. And the target frame is 270 by 54. So these are both the same size. Okay. The difference between these is very little. I usually leave the power bar on the bottom though. And that way I can watch the power of the target, because sometimes it's important on your raid to see that. I do use class colors, and I have a right orientation on this. So that means that everything would be oriented on the other side. We don't want to copy it from here because there are some differences. So the health bar I haven't changed, and I want to keep that the same. The text, although it is at the same place, I want to put it on the top right. Okay. And that is going to be also, I think this is set for -4 as well. Yeah, that's set for -4. Good. Okay. So everything else stays the same. All right. And then the power bar is enabled again. I'm going to leave it at 10, which is right here. But what I want to do with the text is I want to leave, I want to leave the power bar attached, but what I want to do is I want to put it on the bottom right. I'm sorry, bottom left. And then I'm going to pull it offset. I'm going to try probably -4. No, this is probably 4. Oops. Let's set that back to 0. All right. That's because I put it in the wrong one. So I'm going to put this as 4. Okay. Now what that did is that just set the mana power for, in this case, mana, right above the power bar, but it's 4 pixels off. So the next thing is the name. I don't change the name. All right. It has other information in there, difficulty, so it'll be smart level. So if you're doing PvP, you'll be able to actually see, and it'll change the color. But what I want to do is I want to set this to bottom right, and I also want to set this to 4 pixels. The other way to do it is, if you don't know the numbers or you can't get it lined up properly, is just drag it. Just take that bar right there and drag it over, and I'll set it up for you, which is exactly what I did right here. All right. Next, we have the portrait. And again, I like to set the overlay on the portrait. And that will show up. There's the problem. I didn't enable it. So once you enable it, all right, and then you can set your camera distance and your model rotation. So I don't want them facing the same. They're away from each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it so it's kind of facing the opposite direction. And then you can set your camera distance, and that sets how close or how far away your camera distance is. You can go all the way to 4 or set it at almost 0. 2 seems to be a good number, though. And that's where I usually like to set it. So that's 2. Okay. And the next one is buffs and debuffs. I usually don't use these either because of the aura bars. But if you want to put it on there, that's fine. And you can actually move it down the bottom if you want. You can leave it up top. But I disabled both of them. The cast bar is set right here. Okay. You see how it shows up? But now the one thing that I don't like about the cast bar is that it's not right on the unit frame. It's off the unit frame just a little bit. And I do want to put latency on there as well, by the way. Let's see if we can toggle that and actually lift that up just a little bit. Okay. So what we just did is we're going to hide this now, and we're going to try it again. And it's right on there. And that's where I like it. But the other thing that you could do, and I do this with a lot of my other ones, is I actually set it right up here. And I'll set the height at maybe 25, nice and big. And we'll set it the same height and the same, or correction, the same width. And then what you could also do is actually toggle it down to just about on here. I left that little separation on purpose so that there's a difference between the two. And when I actually cast this, as you can see, all right, so that red is the latency, and then it moves across with that spark. And that's what the spark right there is. That spark shows you exactly where it is. So let's hide that. All right. The next thing we have to work on is the combo points. Now, I'm going to disable this because I don't use combo points. So if you're a rogue or druid, you can use those combo points and they'll show up. And you can actually do the same thing that I did with the holy power and move it right here. And you can make it so it's always showing, and then it'll change color as you use your combo points. So mine is disabled right now. The aura bars I want above, but I want it above the frame because I've disabled the debuffs. And that will do the same thing as the auras on my unit frame. It'll just be a timer, and then you can have blacklists or whitelist buffs or debuffs, ones that you want to see or don't want to see. You can change that anytime you want. Okay, so GPS arrow I enable, which is very handy. And the reason is, and I enable this on everybody on everything that I use, so I can see what direction somebody is. If, for example, I am a healer and I'm looking and saying, "Oh crap, I got to heal this guy," but where is he? Well, when you put your mouse over, of course, it doesn't show up here because I'm right here. But let's see if we can find someone to. And it doesn't show on enemy. It only shows up on friendly, I think. generally what it'll do is when you mouse over it and the target is out of range, then the GPS arrow will show what direction you need to go in order to get to that person, whether it be to heal them or do whatever it is that you want to do. So I always enable that. It's helpful. Again, information pane, you can use it if you want. I don't. And then the raid icon is also enabled, and I don't change where the raid icon is. Okay. Simple stuff. Now, the next thing is, this is the general setup where I run my frames. It might be a little bit high, but we'll adjust that later on and keep everything symmetrical, all lined up. All right. So the next thing would be the target of target frame. We just set up the target, so let's set the target of target. First thing you want to do is you want to set the name. And again, you can go and change the formatting or whatever. Whatever you want to put on here. So if you only want short names or very short names, then you can change that as well. So if I was to type open bracket, name, colon, very short, close bracket, it would set the, and I didn't set name color. So that just set the name color on there. But I have name right there. So that's actually what we don't want to do, is we don't want to put it right there. We'll change this later. Okay. But the health, if you want the health in there, you want the text, that's fine. You can put that in there. Normally for a focus frame, I don't use a health text. I just watch the bar, and the bar will go down based on how much health they have. Same thing with power. I don't put power text on there, but I know how much power they have by looking at the power bar down below. So it is enabled, but there's no text. Now for the name. As I was saying, name color, this is set for name medium, which name medium, I think, puts 15 characters on there. So we're going to actually make this very short. And as you can see, it changed it to 5. Okay. And you can change the color again. You can decide where you want it to be, and then you can decide the position. I think center for the name is actually pretty good. You can enable a portrait if you want. I normally don't for a focus frame. And this is your width. So we're set at 45. Okay. Model rotation could be, and the width is, by the way, the size of the portrait. Like I said, I don't use it, but it's there for you. This could be beneficial for you, though. If you are tanking with another tank and you aren't necessarily concerned about buffs, but you want to look at the debuffs, and same thing with the focus frame, you can set that up so they show up right here. Okay. So we're not going to enable buffs, but we do want to enable debuffs. As you can see, it's already been enabled. And then the number is 5 and 1. Font size is 10. Should be good. I'm going to attach it to the frame, and this is set right now for bottom right. That's where we're going to anchor it. But I want to change it to top right. So now it's going to be up here instead of down here. And it'll set time remaining. And you can actually set click through. All right, which is a good idea so that you don't accidentally click on that. And then you get your filters that you can set up as well. Again, information panel, don't use it. Raid icons, I don't change this again. It's set for a good number right there. But the one thing I do want to do is I want to move this so that it is right up against there, okay? But I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to put it right over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it the same size or same place as the starting point for the unit frame or the data text background. And there we go. So we're going to lock that in place. And then we can extend the size of our rate icons if we want. Now, remember I was talking about copying a frame. So here's a focus frame, okay? That's the focus frame right there that's flashing. But what I'm going to do is I want everything the same as my target frame. So there we go. I just set all of the text the same. All of the buffs, debuffs, everything is the same, the exact same size. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to set this on the opposite side. And there we go. Now, I do want to toggle in and adjust where the rate icon marker is. And then that leaves us a little bit more room for the boss button as well. Okay. So there's your player frame. That is your target frame, your target of target, and your focus frame set up. Now that you have all those set up, you could actually go in and copy if you have one that you like the way it's set up. You can copy it to the rest of them. Some of the things that maybe you want a focus target frame over here, you could actually make that the same size and put it over there. Or if you have a pet frame or a pet target frame, maybe you put your pet frame over here and your pet's target right there so you can see what your pet's on. Whatever you want to set up. Again, these are ones that I do not use, and the settings are the same. All the settings are the same. Next time, what we'll do is we're going to go into our boss frames. Actually, scratch that. What we'll do is we'll actually go into our party frames and raid frames. Okay, those will all go in this area right here. But for right now, that's it. That's the setup for our player frame, our target frame, our target frame, and our focus frame. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to add some comments down in the discussion area, and I'll try to respond to those. Until next time, though, have a great time, and we'll see you later.